My parents said coldly, "Your kids aren't important enough for Christmas gifts." My sister smirked, "Why waste anything on those little bastards?" My kids' eyes welled up. I stood, pulled out my phone, and said something that froze the entire room. The Christmas lights on my parents' house twinkled mockingly as I pulled into the driveway. My daughters, Emma and Lily, were bouncing in their car seats with excitement. This was supposed to be their first real Christmas with the extended family since the divorce. At 8 and 5 years old, they had weathered so much already. I wanted this to be perfect for them. My ex-husband, Trevor, had left us 3 years ago for his 23-year-old assistant. The divorce had been brutal, but I clawed my way back to stability. Working as a software engineer at a major tech company, I'd managed to buy us a modest house in a good school district. The settlement hadn't been generous, but we were making it work. My daughters were resilient, bright, and the center of my universe. I'd grown up in this house with my younger sister, Valerie. She'd always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When she married Justin Park, a corporate lawyer from a wealthy family, my parents acted like she'd won the lottery. Their wedding had cost more than my first year of college tuition. Meanwhile, when I'd married Trevor, a middle school teacher, my father had made snide comments about my modest aspirations. The front door swung open before we reached it. My mother, Patricia, stood there in a designer sweater, her smile tight and practiced. She hugged me briefly, her perfume overwhelming, then barely glanced at the girls. Come in. Valerie and Justin are already here with the boys." My nephews, Chase and Braden, were 10 and 7. I heard them shrieking in the living room, presumably tearing through presents. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon, picture perfect as always. My father, Robert, sat in his leather armchair, nursing a scotch despite it being only 2 in the afternoon. "Hey, Dad," I said, guiding my daughters into the room. He nodded vaguely in my direction. "Traffic okay?" Before I could answer, Valerie swept in from the kitchen, carrying a tray of cookies. She looked immaculate as always, her highlighted hair perfectly styled, her cashmere dress fitting like it had been tailored yesterday. Which it probably had been. "Oh, you made it," she said, her tone suggesting this was somehow surprising. "Girls, go play with your cousins." Emma and Lily approached the boys tentatively. Chase looked up from his new gaming console and sneered. "We're busy. Go away." "Chase, be nice," Valerie said absently, not even looking at him. The afternoon dragged on with forced small talk. Justin dominated the conversation with stories about his latest cases, each one designed to showcase how successful and important he was. My mother hung on every word. I tried to engage Emma and Lily in decorating cookies, but Valerie kept interrupting with passive-aggressive comments about sugar intake and childhood obesity. When dinner was served, the seating arrangement spoke volumes. Valerie and her family sat at one end of the table with my parents, while my daughters and I were relegated to the other end, almost like we were at a separate table entirely. The roast was dry, the conversation stilted. Emma kept trying to tell my mother about her school play, but Patricia would glance at her phone or ask Justin another question before Emma could finish. After dinner, my father stood and cleared his throat. Present time. The living room erupted in chaos as Chase and Braden tore into an avalanche of gifts. A new bicycle for Chase, the latest video game system, designer clothes, sports equipment, gift cards totaling what looked like several $100s. My parents beamed as each present was opened, documenting everything with their phones. Emma and Lily sat on the couch, watching with wide eyes. They'd brought small handmade gifts for everyone, cards they'd decorated themselves. Those gifts sat ignored on the side table. The pile of presents dwindled. Then it was gone. Emma's hand crept into mine. "Mom?" she whispered. "Is it our turn?" My stomach dropped. There was nothing under the tree with their names on it. Not a single package. I turned to my mother. "Mom, did you maybe put the girls' presents somewhere else?" Patricia sipped her wine and exchanged a glance with my father. "What presents?" The room went quiet except for Chase's excited chatter about his new bicycle. "The Christmas presents. For Emma and Lily." My father set down his scotch glass with a heavy thunk. "We didn't get them anything this year." The words hung in the air like poisonous smoke. Lily's lower lip started to tremble. Emma's grip on my hand tightened until it hurt. "You didn't get them anything, I repeated slowly, certain I'd misheard. Your kids aren't important enough for Christmas gifts, Patricia said, her voice cold and matter-of-fact. She could have been discussing the weather. We have limited resources, and we decided to focus on the children who actually mattered to this family. Valerie smirked from her position on the love seat, one arm draped possessively over Justin's shoulders. Why waste anything on those little illegitimates? The word hit me like a physical blow. Emma made a small, hurt sound. Lily started crying openly, tears streaming down her cheeks. What did you just call my daughters? My voice shook. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Valerie said, waving her hand dismissively. Everyone knows Trevor left because you couldn't keep a man satisfied. These kids are basically fatherless. They don't count as real family. My mother nodded in agreement. Valerie has given us legitimate grandchildren. Boys who will carry on the family name. Your situation is unfortunate, but we can't be expected to treat all children equally when some are clearly more valuable than others. I looked at my father, waiting for him to intervene, to say something. He just stared into his drink. Justin actually laughed. Come on, nobody really expected presents for them, right? They're not exactly priority grandkids. Emma's eyes welled up with tears she was desperately trying to hold back. At 8 years old, she understood every word. Lily was sobbing into her hands, her small shoulders shaking. Chase and Brayden watched with cruel interest, already learning from their parents that some people mattered less than others. Something inside me snapped. I stood up slowly, reaching for my phone. My hands were steady now, eerily calm. 20 years of being the disappointing daughter, of having my achievements minimized and my struggles mocked, crystallized into perfect clarity. I need to make a call, I said quietly. Valerie rolled her eyes. Oh, are you going to call Trevor and cry about how mean we are? He doesn't care, sweetie. Nobody does. I pulled up my contacts and hit dial. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. David? It's me. I know it's Christmas, but I need to ask you something important. I paused, looking directly at my father. That offer you made last month about partnering on the Henderson Technologies acquisition? I'm in. Full partnership. 50-50 split on everything. My father's head snapped up. What are you talking about? I held up one finger, continuing my conversation. Yes, I'm sure. I'll bring my full investment portfolio. The stock options, the savings, all of it. We're talking about 30 million, correct? Another pause. Perfect. I'll have my attorney draw up the papers this week. Thanks, David. Merry Christmas. I ended the call and looked at my family. The room was completely silent now. What was that? My father demanded, his face reddening. That was David Henderson. His family owns Henderson Technologies, the company your construction business has been trying to partner with for the past 18 months. I sat back down and pulled my daughters close. Did you know I went to MIT with David? We've stayed friends. When his company started looking for investors last year, he approached me first. My mother's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. You don't have that kind of money. Actually, I do. My salary at my tech company is $240,000 a year. I've been there for 9 years, including stock options that have multiplied in value. I've been investing carefully since college. Plus the insurance payout from Grandma Ruth's policy that she left specifically to me, remember? The one you all assumed was worthless because she was just a crazy old woman who played the stock market. I smiled without humor. Turns out she was pretty smart. That $50,000 she left me 15 years ago has grown substantially. Valerie leaned forward, her smugness faltering. You're lying. Am I? David's company is merging with another tech firm next quarter. They need capital injection for the expansion. My investment guarantees me a seat on the board and profit sharing on all future contracts. I turned to my father. Including the contract your construction company desperately needs to stay competitive. The one worth approximately $40 million over the next 5 years. My father's face had gone pale. You wouldn't. I already did. David and I agreed months ago that if I came in as a full partner, I'd have veto power on all major contracts. Especially those involving construction firms for the new facilities they're building. Justin finally spoke, his lawyer instincts kicking in. That's not ethical. You can't use business relationships for personal vendettas. Personal vendettas? I'm just making sound business decisions. My partner and I need to work with companies that share our values. Companies that understand the importance of family. Of treating all people with dignity and respect. I looked at each of them in turn. Does your company share those values, Dad? The implications settled over them like a fog. My father's construction business had been struggling for years. This contract would save it, set them up for comfortable retirement. Without it, they'd likely have to sell at a loss within 2 years. You can't do this, my mother said, her voice cracking. We're family. Family, I repeated softly. You mean like how you treated my daughters tonight? Like they're worth nothing? Like they don't matter? Valerie stood abruptly. This is blackmail. This is business. Just like you all have always told me. Business isn't personal, right? You make decisions based on value and return on investment. Well, I'm making a decision based on my values. I gathered Emma and Lily, who were still crying but now watching everything with confused expressions. We're leaving now. Girls, say goodbye to your grandparents. I suspect we won't be seeing them for a while. Wait, my father said, standing up. Let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You made your position clear. My children aren't important enough for a single Christmas present, not even a $5 toy. They're wastes of your resources. Those were your words. We didn't mean, my mother started. You meant exactly what you said. You've always meant it. I was never good enough because I didn't marry rich. My daughters aren't good enough because their father left. You spent my entire life making me feel less than Valerie. Tonight you made my children feel worthless on Christmas. My voice hardened. So now you get to learn what consequences feel like. Justin was typing frantically on his phone. The Henderson deal is real. They announced the merger last week. This is actually happening. Valerie's face had gone from smug to panicked. Justin, do something. Use your legal connections. There's nothing illegal about this, Justin admitted quietly. She's within her rights. I walked to the door, my daughters on either side of me. Emma had stopped crying and was holding her head high. Lily still sniffled but gripped my hand tightly. If you walk out that door, you're done, my father threatened. You'll never be welcome back. I'll take that deal, I said. Enjoy explaining to your friends at the country club why your business is failing. I'm sure they'll be very understanding about how you treated your grandchildren. We drove home in silence for a few minutes. Then Emma spoke up from the back seat. Mom? Are you really not going to help Grandpa's company? I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. How do you feel about what happened tonight? She was quiet, thinking. They were mean. Really mean. They were. And sometimes when people are mean, especially to the people we love most, there are consequences. Do you think they deserved presents after how they made you feel? Emma shook her head slowly. Lily copied her sister. Then there's your answer. We spent the rest of Christmas evening in our small but warm house. I ordered pizza, and we watched movies curled up on the couch. I'd already bought them presents weeks ago, hidden in my closet. They opened them with genuine joy, books, art supplies, the dollhouse Emma had been wanting. Nothing extravagant, but given with love. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. My father, my mother, then Valerie, all calling repeatedly. I let them go to voicemail. By noon, there were 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages ranging from angry to pleading. My mother's final text read, "Please call us. We need to talk about this. The family needs this contract." I texted back, "My daughters are family too. You made it clear they're not important to you. Now my priorities are clear to you." The calls continued for days. I blocked their numbers. Then they started showing up at my house. I didn't answer the door. On New Year's Eve, I received an email from Valerie. The subject line read, "You've gone too far." Inside was a 3-page manifesto about how I was destroying the family over a simple misunderstanding and how my oversensitivity had always been my biggest flaw. She claimed Emma and Lily were too young to even remember what happened, so I was manufacturing drama for attention. I forwarded it to my therapist without responding. The next day, My mother left a voicemail that I listened to once before deleting. Her voice was shaking as she explained how my father had been having chest pains from the stress, how the doctor was concerned about his heart. She said I was killing him with my stubbornness. The emotional manipulation was so textbook that I almost laughed, except there was nothing funny about it. Justin sent a formal letter on his law firm's letterhead, threatening legal action for tortious interference with business relationships. I forwarded it to my own attorney, Richard Chen, who called me an hour later laughing. "This is the weakest legal threat I've seen in years," Richard said. "There's no case here. You're an independent investor making independent business decisions. He knows that. This is intimidation theater." Should I respond? I'll send a reply that basically says nice try, now go away. Don't engage directly. They're desperate and looking for any opening. I took his advice. Meanwhile, Emma started asking questions about what was happening. She'd overheard part of a phone conversation with Richard and knew something was going on with Grandpa's business. "Mom, are you the reason Grandpa's company is having trouble?" she asked one evening while we were making dinner together. I stopped chopping vegetables and looked at her directly. "Yes." "Because of what they said to us at Christmas?" "Because of what they said, how they treated you, and what they showed me about their values. Do you remember how that night made you feel?" Emma's expression darkened. I felt like something was wrong with me. Like I was broken or bad. Exactly. And nobody who makes you feel that way, especially on purpose, deserves to be rewarded. Sometimes protecting the people we love means making hard choices. "Are you worried you did the wrong thing?" Her question caught me off guard with its perceptiveness. "Sometimes. But then I remember your face when they said you weren't important enough. And I know I did exactly what I needed to do." She hugged me tightly. "I'm glad you're my mom." The validation from my daughter meant more than anything my parents could have said. A week later, I ran into an old high school friend, Stephanie, at the grocery store. She'd always been friendly with Valerie too, and I could see the discomfort on her face when she spotted me. "Hey," she said awkwardly. "How are things?" "Good. You?" "Fine, fine." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Look, I've been hearing things. About the family situation. Valerie's been talking." "I'm sure she has. She's telling people you're having some kind of breakdown. That you've become vindictive and unstable since the divorce. That you're taking out your failures on your parents." I felt anger flash through me but kept my voice level. "What do you think?" Stephanie looked uncomfortable. "I think there are always two sides to every story. But I also remember what it was like growing up around your family. How they have always treated you differently than Valerie. So I'm not rushing to judgment." "I appreciate that. For what it's worth, I saw your mom at the grocery store last week. She looked awful. Like she'd aged 10 years. I didn't respond to that. After an awkward goodbye, we parted ways. But the encounter stayed with me. My parents were waging a social campaign to paint me as the villain, spreading their version of events through their network. I was being portrayed as an unstable, vengeful daughter who couldn't handle a simple family disagreement. Part of me wanted to defend myself, to tell everyone what really happened. But I realized that anyone who knew me would question their narrative, and anyone who believed it without asking probably wasn't worth having in my life anyway. 2 weeks into January, I met with David and his team. The partnership was formalized. My investment was secured. When the list of potential construction contractors came up for review, my father's company was on it. "This one," David said, pointing to the file. "Robert's firm. You know them?" "I do. I can't recommend them." "Any particular reason?" "Company culture issues. I have concerns about their values and how they treat people." David made a note. "That's enough for me. We'll go with the Morrison Group instead." 3 days later, my father showed up at my office. Security called before letting him up. 5 minutes, I told them. He looked older than I remembered, his face haggard. "Your mother is beside herself. Valerie hasn't stopped crying. I imagine it's difficult watching your business circle the drain. I'm asking you to reconsider. Please." Did Emma and Lily ask for anything unreasonable? Did they demand expensive gifts? Did they throw tantrums? I leaned back in my chair. They sat there quietly and watched you shower their cousins with presents. They heard you call them unimportant. They heard their aunt call them vile names. And you said nothing? We were wrong. Is that what you want to hear? I want you to understand what you did. Those are children. My children. Your grandchildren, whether you acknowledge them or not. You broke their hearts on Christmas because you decided they were less valuable than Valerie's kids. I'll apologize to them. We all will. An apology means nothing without changed behavior. And even if you meant it, the damage is done. Emma asked me the next day if there was something wrong with her. If she was bad and that's why nobody loves her except me. She's 8 years old, and you made her feel defective. My father's eyes were watering. I'll do anything. Then you'll learn to live with your choices. Just like I've had to live with being the disappointment. Just like my daughters have to live with having an absent father and grandparents who reject them. This will ruin us. Then you'll understand how it feels to lose everything. I stood. Your 5 minutes are up. He left, shoulders slumped. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Just a hollow ache where my family used to be. The contract went to Morrison Group. My father's business struggled through the rest of the year. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they'd had to lay off workers, scale back operations. My mother stopped going to her society luncheons, embarrassed by their reduced circumstances. Valerie and Justin were still fine, of course, but the gravy train from my parents had slowed considerably. By late spring, I'd already invested in therapy for my daughters. Emma in particular needed help processing the rejection. The therapist told me I'd done the right thing by protecting them from further toxicity. Children internalize these messages, Dr. Patterson explained during one of our sessions. If you'd allowed continued contact, they would have grown up believing they deserved that treatment. You showed them their worth by refusing to accept less. In March, I received a letter. It was from my mother, handwritten on her monogrammed stationery. I've had months to think about Christmas, it began. Your father and I were cruel. More than cruel. Unconscionable. We favored Valerie her entire life, and we extended that favoritism to her children at the expense of yours. There is no excuse. I've been seeing a therapist, which I probably should have done years ago. She's helping me understand how we created this dynamic, how we valued certain things, status, wealth, appearances, over what truly matters. I can't undo what we said to Emma and Lily. I can't take back years of making you feel less than. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for contact. I just want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. I would have done the same thing in your position. I should have done the same thing long ago, stood up to my own mother's favoritism. Instead, I perpetuated it. Your daughters are lucky to have you. You're stronger than I ever was. With love and regret, Mom. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. 2 more months passed. The school year ended. Emma was thriving in therapy, making friends, joining the drama club. Lily was doing well in kindergarten, her confidence rebuilding. We created our own little family unit, just the 3 of us. Some evenings were hard, when they'd ask about grandparents or why their cousins didn't want to play with them anymore. But we talked through it, honestly and age-appropriately. In June, several months after the partnership was formalized, David called me about a quarterly review meeting. The Henderson Technologies expansion was ahead of schedule, profits exceeding projections. My investment had already appreciated by 18%. You have good instincts, he said. That Morrison Group recommendation was perfect. They're delivering quality work ahead of deadline. Glad it worked out. There's something else. Robert's firm reached out again, offering to undercut Morrison's pricing on the Phase 2 expansion. Significantly undercut, actually. Almost suspiciously low. Desperation move, I said. That's what I figured. Just wanted to run it by you. The answer is still no. Understood. My father declared bankruptcy in August. The business that had been in our family for 2 generations closed its doors. My parents' house went up for sale. They'd be moving to a smaller place, downsizing dramatically. The country club membership was gone, the luxury cars, the designer clothes. My mother's jewelry collection was sold piece by piece. Valerie called me from a number I didn't recognize, getting through my blocks. Are you happy now? She screamed when I answered. Mom and Dad have lost everything. Everything. And for what? Because we didn't buy your kids presents? No, I said calmly. Because you called them little illegitimates. Because Mom said they weren't important enough. Because Dad sat there and let it happen. Because all of you treated two innocent children like they were garbage on Christmas. They're fine. Kids are resilient. They are resilient. Because I taught them to be. Because I showed them that their worth isn't determined by people who don't value them. And I showed them something else, that there are consequences when you treat people as disposable. You're vindictive and petty. I'm protective. There's a difference. She hung up on me. I didn't hear from any of them again for months. September brought a surprise. My doorbell rang on a Saturday morning. I opened it to find my mother standing there, alone. She looked different, older, yes, but also somehow lighter. She wore jeans and a plain sweater, no jewelry, no expensive handbag. I'm not here to ask for anything, she said immediately. I just wanted to see if you'd let me say something. If not, I'll leave and never bother you again. I considered. Emma and Lily were at a friend's birthday party. 5 minutes. We sat on my porch. She didn't come inside. I've lost almost everything, she started. The house, the lifestyle, the friends who only cared about what we could provide. Your father and I are living in a 2-bedroom apartment now. He's working as a project consultant for Morrison Group, ironically enough. Took a massive pay cut. I know. I keep track. Of course you do. She smiled sadly. Here's what I didn't expect. I'm happier now. Not happy, not after everything that's happened. But lighter. All that maintaining appearances, keeping up with the Joneses, making sure Valerie had everything she wanted, it was exhausting. It was empty. I'm glad you've learned something. I've learned I was a terrible mother to you. I've learned I valued the wrong things. I've learned that I destroyed relationships with my own grandchildren for the sake of some twisted family hierarchy that never mattered. She looked at me directly. I'm not asking to see Emma and Lily. I'm not asking for reconciliation. I just needed you to know that you were right. About all of it. Why are you really here? She pulled an envelope from her purse. This is from the sale of my jewelry. $10,000. It's for Emma and Lily. For college funds, or whatever you think is best. It's not enough, not remotely enough to make up for anything. But it's all I have left of value. I didn't take the envelope. They don't need your money. I know. But I need to give it. Please. Let me do this one thing. I thought about it. About my daughters, about the lessons I wanted them to learn. About grace and consequences and the complicated nature of family. I'll put it in their college funds, I said finally. And I'll tell them it was from you. But this doesn't change anything. You don't get access to them. Not yet, maybe not ever. I understand. If you want a relationship with them someday, you'll need to do years of work. Therapy. Real change. And even then, it'll be their choice, not mine. That's more than fair. She left the envelope on the porch railing and stood to go. At the steps, she paused. You're an extraordinary mother. I hope someday I can tell my granddaughters that myself. But if I never get that chance, I want you to know I see it. And I'm sorry I never saw it before. She walked away, got into a 10-year-old sedan, and drove off. I sat there holding the envelope for a long time. Inside was a check and a note, for Emma and Lily, who deserved so much better than what we gave them. With love from their grandma. When the girls came home, I sat them down and explained that Grandma had sent them something. Emma, now 9, was thoughtful. Does this mean she's not mean anymore? It means she's trying to be better. But trying isn't the same as succeeding. People have to show us who they are over time, not just once. Are we going to see her? Not right now. Maybe someday, if she keeps trying. But only if you want to. Lily, now 6, asked, does she love us now? The question broke my heart. I think she always loved you, baby. She just loved other things more. And that's not okay. Love is supposed to be the most important thing. A year passed. My parents were still in their small apartment. My father worked steadily, apparently good at his job even without the prestige. My mother had taken a part-time position at a library, something she'd mentioned in one of her letters. Valerie and Justin's marriage had fallen apart, and I learned through a brief, bitter voicemail from Valerie that she blamed me for that too, claiming the family stress had destroyed the relationship. She was getting divorced and moving across the country. After that single message, I never heard from her again. My mother sent birthday cards to the girls. Not expensive ones, just simple cards with handwritten notes. Thinking of you, hoping your day is special. She never asked for anything in return. In December, 2 years after that fateful Christmas, another envelope arrived. Inside was a card with a simple message: I know I have no right to ask this, but if you're ever willing, I'd like to try to be a real grandmother. I understand if the answer is no. Either way, Merry Christmas to Emma and Lily. I think about them every day. I showed it to the girls. Emma read it carefully, then looked at me. What do you think, Mom? I think it's your choice. Both of you. We could invite her to lunch somewhere public, see how it goes. But if either of you feels uncomfortable at any point, we leave. No guilt, no pressure. They conferred in that way siblings do, whispering to each other. Finally, Emma nodded. We could try. But just lunch. We met at a casual restaurant the following week. My mother arrived early, looking nervous. She'd brought small, thoughtful gifts, a book for Emma about theater, since I'd mentioned in an email that Emma was in drama club, and a stuffed animal for Lily that wasn't expensive but was clearly chosen with care. The lunch was awkward but not hostile. My mother asked questions about school, about their interests, actually listened to their answers. She didn't make excuses for the past. When Emma asked why she'd been so mean before, my mother said simply, I was wrong. I cared about things that didn't matter and I hurt people who did. I'm trying to be better. Are you better? Emma asked, with a child's directness. I hope so. But you'll have to decide that for yourself. We kept it short, less than an hour. At the end, my mother asked if she could write to them sometimes. Emma and Lily agreed, cautiously. Over the following months, there were letters. My mother wrote about books she was reading, birds she saw at the park, small details of her life. She asked about their activities and actually remembered what they told her. When Emma's school play came around, she asked if she could attend. I agreed, with the caveat that she'd sit separately and leave immediately after if requested. She came, sat in the back, applauded enthusiastically for Emma's performance. Afterward, she told Emma how proud she was, gave her flowers, and left without trying to extend the visit. It was slow. Gradual. There were setbacks, moments when my mother would say something that revealed old thought patterns, moments when the girls pulled back, uncertain. But there was also progress. My father was a different story. He'd send a few messages, but they always felt more about his guilt than about my daughters. I kept him at a distance. Maybe someday, but not yet. Valerie never reached out except once, to inform me she was getting divorced. I didn't respond. That bridge had burned to ash. 3 years after that Christmas, my mother asked if she could host a small birthday party for Emma's 11th birthday. I was skeptical, but Emma surprised me by saying yes. The party was in my mother's small apartment. There were homemade decorations, a cake she'd baked herself, carefully chosen gifts that showed she'd been paying attention to who Emma was becoming. It was simple, nothing extravagant. It was also filled with genuine love. At the end of the party, my mother pulled me aside. Thank you for giving me another chance. I didn't give you anything. They did. And you earned it. I wish I could go back and do everything differently. You can't. None of us can. But you're doing the work now, and that matters. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I love them. I hope they know that. Keep showing them. Eventually, they will. As we drove home, Lily asked, Mom, do you think people can really change? I think people can change if they want to badly enough, and if they're willing to do the hard work. Your grandmother wanted to change. Not everyone does. Good, Lily said firmly. Because I like her better now. Emma agreed. She's not perfect, but she tries. That's what you always tell us matters. I glanced at them in the rearview mirror, these incredible humans I'd raised. They'd learned to stand up for themselves, to know their worth, to give people chances but only when those chances were earned. They'd learned that love wasn't just words but actions. That family was complicated and messy, and sometimes it didn't work out, but sometimes, with enough effort, it could be rebuilt into something different and perhaps more real. David Henderson's company continued to thrive, and my investment with it. I'd secured my daughter's future financially, but more than that, I'd secured it emotionally. They knew they mattered. They knew they were loved. They knew they deserved respect and kindness, and they knew what to do when they didn't receive it. The small apartment where my mother now lived was worlds away from the mansion where I'd grown up. But when we visited, it felt warmer than that house ever had. There were pictures of Emma and Lily on the fridge, their artwork on the walls, books they'd recommended on the shelf. One evening, after a dinner at my mother's place, Emma hugged her grandmother goodbye. It was unprompted, natural. My mother's face showed surprise and joy and sorrow all at once. As we walked to the car, Emma said, "I'm glad we gave her another chance." "Me too," I admitted. "But Mom? Thank you for not letting her hurt us again. For making her prove she was different first." I hugged both my daughters close. "Always. That's my job." Looking back, I don't regret what I did. Some people called it vindictive, extreme, disproportionate. But they didn't see my daughters' faces on Christmas. They didn't hear those words spoken so casually, with such cruelty. They didn't understand what it means to watch your children learn that they're considered worthless by people who should love them unconditionally. Actions have consequences. Love requires more than words. Family is earned, not automatic. These are the lessons I taught my daughters, and the lessons my parents finally learned. My father's business failed, yes. My parents lost their wealth and status. But they gained something more valuable, at least my mother did, a real relationship with her granddaughters, built on honesty and effort rather than obligation and appearance. As for Valerie, I heard she'd moved across the country after her divorce. Chase and Braden were now 13 and 10 respectively, apparently with their own issues stemming from years of being told they were superior simply by virtue of being born. I felt sorry for them, those boys who'd learned all the wrong lessons. My daughters, though? They're thriving. Emma wants to be a civil rights lawyer, inspired by understanding what justice really means. Lily is considering therapy as a career, wanting to help people heal. They're kind, confident, and fierce in their own ways. And me? I rebuilt my relationship with my mother into something authentic. I protected my children from toxicity while teaching them about redemption and second chances. I proved to myself that I was strong enough to stand alone if necessary, but also flexible enough to bend when someone truly changed. That Christmas 3 years ago was the worst night of my life in some ways. My children were devastated, I lost my family, and I made a decision that destroyed my parents' livelihood. But it was also the night I drew a line in the sand and said enough. The night I chose my daughters over everything else, which is what I should have been doing all along. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. Because Emma and Lily know, without question, that they matter. That they're worthy. That they're loved. And no amount of money, status, or family harmony is worth more than that.